Welcome back to Bonkers for Boro with me, Phil Spencer. And in this section, I just want to talk about Morgan Whittaker because Middlesbrough played against Preston at the weekend and played out a 2-2 draw. That was a really good performance, a really good result, and one which showed real character from Rob Edwards' side. But Morgan Whittaker was one of the main talking points to come out of that contest at Deepdale. Now, Morgan Whittaker was named in the starting 11 for the clash, played 65 minutes, but then when he was replaced, on 65 minutes. Sverri Nipan came on in place of him. He was met by ironic cheers from sections of the Middlesbrough supporters in attendance. There was over 5,500 fans in attendance at Deepdale supporting Middlesbrough. They got behind the team all afternoon. But with Morgan Whittaker, it was just a little bit disappointing the way that they went after him. Whittaker, let's get this straight, he didn't have a good game. The first half was quite disappointing. He struggled on the ball. He didn't really make much of an impact. To be fair, Middlesbrough as a team weren't playing particularly well. It was kind of very, very hard to link up the attack with the midfield. We were finding that Rob Edwards' side were going a lot more direct than what they have in other games, of sort of bypassing the midfield and sort of pumping the ball into the flanks, into the channels for Morgan Whittaker, and in the first half, Callie Sen to try and do something with. And I think for Whittaker, it was another frustrating afternoon because it's not been the first time that he has struggled in a Middlesbrough shirt. He arrived from Plymouth Argyle in the January transfer window for a substantial fee. Came in, and I think fans were hoping that he would hit the ground running and be a real threat in Middlesbrough's attack, but that hasn't quite happened for him. Since he arrived at the club, he's made 22 appearances in that time. He hasn't scored a goal yet for Middlesbrough. He's provided 3 assists, and while he has showed moments of promise, it has been disappointing for him because I don't think he's really been able to make much of an impact I guess, from a creative output front. Now, I think when you look at his performance against Preston North End, it was disappointing. When you go on FotMob, the football statistics website, you got a rating of 6.4, which is no great shakes. Accurate passes, he made 20 accurate passes out of 27, created 2 chances, 1 defensive contribution. He had 1 shot which wasn't on target, 1 successful dribble, 1 accurate long ball. He was dispossessed 3 times. Ground duels, he only won 4 of his 11. So it's quite clear to see why his rating wasn't that high and why fans were disappointed in his performance. But I think the fact that he was met with ironic cheers was just really disappointing from my point of view. I think that's something that no current Middlesbrough player should be having to go through. As far as I'm concerned, every player who plays for Middlesbrough should be supported by supporters. I think anyone who's playing in the red and white is part of the Middlesbrough family. I guess they're people who should be supported, and I think you have to look at it from a human level. Really, he's someone who has come to the club. He's clearly struggled with his performances so far. He hasn't met the expectations that fans were expecting. When he came to the club in January, he showed moments of promise. There has been moments where it's looked like things were about to click, but that hasn't been consistent enough. And so his confidence is really sort of struggling. He's clearly taken a hit to that confidence. And I think that the way that some sections of fans were going on at Deepdale was just really disappointing because I just don't think it helps anybody, particularly Morgan Whittaker. I think for a player like him, a creative player who has struggled so far, you need to be getting behind him. He needs to be someone who is supported and encouraged by fans. And I think particularly when things are going quite well for the team, it's a different matter when you're dealing with a team who are struggling at the bottom end of the table, like struggling to compete with their opponents and not putting the effort. They're not tracking back. They're not tackling in midfield and putting in a shift for the team. But I don't think that's fair to say about Morgan Whittaker. I think he does put in a relatively good shift, and I think what was most disappointing was just the fact that it felt like he wasn't being supported by the fans in attendance. Now, Rob Edwards came out after the game and he was quite outspoken, really, about this matter. He did an interview with Middlesbrough's official club channels. He spoke about this. He spoke about the game for a few minutes and was talking about the character that was showed by the team and the fact that we performed well and how we didn't have it all our own way, but we were able to fight back and it showed great character and that sort of thing. But then at the very end, he made a real point of talking about Morgan Whittaker and his situation and how he felt about about the reaction from supporters. And so what he said was, he said, I don't want to see that response when I'm making a substitution. We're a family, and if we're going to achieve something, we've got to be in it together. Morgan, from day one of us coming, has been absolutely brilliant. He loves playing for this football club, and he's giving everything at the moment. We protect our own, we look after our own. And I think that was really telling, the fact that Rob Edwards came out and spoke up on behalf of Morgan Whittaker. He did speak in a little bit more detail than that. He was saying that that fans do have the right to express their opinions. Of course they do. It's really important that fans do feel like they are able to speak their minds. But I just feel like it's kind of counterproductive when you are ironically cheering a player when he's coming off the pitch, because what's that going to achieve? It just means that he's going to be lacking in confidence even more when he takes to the field next time. It could be that he's named in the starting 11 against West Brom on Friday night. And what's he going to feel? He's going to be scared of making mistakes, because he's going to be worried that fans will be on his back again. And it just feels like a really unnecessary thing for Morgan Whittaker to be having to deal with. I think as a player, as an attacking player, he needs to be feeling confident. He needs to be feeling empowered. And I think as supporters, it's our job to make sure that our players do feel like that. Of course, there's a time and a place for expressing dissatisfaction over performances, whether it's individuals or the team, if it warrants that. But come on, we've played 5 games in the Championship. We've won 4 of them. We've drawn 1. Things are looking absolutely brilliant. So I think for sort of digging him out based on one performance, which wasn't horrendous, by the way. It wasn't horrendous. He was poor, but everyone was poor, really, in that first half against Preston. It was just quite disappointing to see, as far as I'm concerned. But I think when you look at Morgan Whittaker's statistics in general for Middlesbrough this season, not actually that bad. He tops Middlesbrough's assist charts. He's got 2 assists so far this season. That's more than anyone else. Hayden Hackney and Aidan Morris have got 1 each. If you look at his overall FOTMOB rating, so that's bringing together all of his statistics, his key metrics in each of his positions, he's actually got a higher rating than any other attacking player at Middlesbrough at the moment, which kind of goes to show that's higher than Tommy Conway, higher than Sverry Nipan, any of these kind of players. He's got a higher rating than all of them. He's created 1 big chance this season. Only 1 player has contributed more, and that's Luke Ayling with 2. Chances created in total, he's created 5. Only Hayden Hackney and Tommy Conway have created more than him so far this season. So I think his numbers are far from disastrous. And I've seen suggestions on social media about why is Rob Edwards still picking him? He contributes absolutely nothing. And I think when you look at the numbers there, it's quite clear to see why he's still being selected. His numbers are actually all right. It may not be easy on the eye all the time. He might not be someone who is constantly pressing his defender. He's not working hard and tracking back and scrapping to win the ball back. He might lack a little bit of quality in his final ball at the end of the day. I personally think that he's someone who thrives on finding the back of the net. He's someone who he's always been creative, but he's always been a wide player who was more focused on finding the back of the net than creating opportunities, if that makes sense. You've got some players who are more designed to be creative and to provide assists. I think you're looking at people like Sverry Nipan, who's a creative player, and yes, he wants to find the back of the net, but he's more of a team player, more someone who is going to be picking out the passes and trying to help his teammates. Whereas you've got wide players like people like Morgan Whittaker, and I think if you zoom out and come away from the Middlesbrough sort of spectrum, I think if you're looking at someone like I don't know, even someone like Mo Salah or Marcus Rashford, wide players who play, but they're goal-scoring wide men, if that makes sense. Players who are out there almost as wide forwards, people who want to find the back of the net. And I think that's what Morgan Whittaker is. I think that's what, in an ideal world, Morgan Whittaker would be for Middlesbrough. I don't think he's someone who is going to be... He's not a Ben Doak type player who's going to get wide and get to the byline and be trying to get the ball into the box. He's not a Sverry Nipan who's going to dig in and show intricate touches to find his teammates. He's someone who wants to get on the ball, and his first instinct always is to get the shot away, which is frustrating at times because sometimes you want him to pick out the pass, but other times you do want a player like that. You do want someone who is selfish to an extent, ruthless to an extent, someone who's willing to try and find the back of the net. And I think for Morgan Whittaker, I think that's what the issue has been, the fact that he hasn't been able to find the back of the net. I think if he did score a goal, I do think he's someone who would probably go on a bit of a run. I think that's ultimately what he would offer to Middlesbrough's team this season. If he can find the back of the net, hit a bit of form. I think he's someone who would contribute with a decent amount of goals, but unfortunately, it just hasn't happened yet. And I think as far as Whittaker's concerned, as far as the supporters are concerned, I think it's important that fans do get behind him. But at the same time, Morgan Whittaker does need to help himself. Football is it's a ruthless game at the end of the day, and now following the summer transfer window, we are blessed with a good amount of options. We've got a number of players who can play in those positions in the final third. You've got the likes of Delano Bergsorg and Riley McGree, and you've got Sverri Nipan who's playing in a more advanced role. And then that's before you even got onto the attacking players like David Strelec and Tommy Conway and Kali Sen, all of whom can play as a number 9, but can also play slightly deeper. We saw it against Preston, how Strelec was willing to drop deep. We saw Tommy Conway drop into one of those wide positions. Kali Sen started the game in a wide role as well. I think all of them ideally would be looking to play as a centre forward, but all of them do have that little bit of versatility, which means that they can play in a number of different positions. And I think for Morgan Whittaker, that is probably the big concern, because maybe last season, in the second half of last season, Middlesbrough had, I guess, little choice but to give him the chance to continue playing, to keep starting him. But now, because we do have so many players, Sanjay Hansen, I forgot about him as well. He obviously got the goal against Preston as well. So there's so many players who can be playing in the attacking third into those 3 positions in the team. And I think for Morgan Whittaker, it is a bit of a crunch moment for him. I think this is going to be a really important stage of his Middlesbrough career. This has been a bit of a low, really, in terms of what happened at Preston and the fan reaction to him. And I personally feel sorry for him. I feel like on his day, he does have a lot to offer. I think if he's on form, I think he's good enough to be a starter for Middlesbrough. But I do think that now is the time when he needs to start showing it, whether that's being a little bit less selfish in front of goal, looking to provide a little bit more, whether it's working a little bit harder for the team and tracking back and just showing supporters that he does have that desire to impress and to succeed. I think will be really, really important for him. But ultimately, with so many players vying for those spots in the team, it's going to be difficult for him. I'm going to be very interested to see whether he starts against West Brom. I think obviously it goes without saying Rob Edwards has 2 choices to make here. There's 2 options of what he can do. He can either keep the faith with him. Obviously, Rob Edwards came out and spoke to supporters after the game, backing Morgan Whittaker, talking about how good he was. And so is he going to follow through on that? Is he going to double down and name him back in the starting 11 and say, no, he's my man, I've got full faith in him, he's starting this game? Or is it the right time for him to drop out and be like, right, I'm going to take him out the firing line, let the heat die down a little bit and give someone else an opportunity? It's really difficult to say what the best thing to do would be in this situation. I think I'd be tempted to keep him in the starting 11. I think after what happened at Preston, I think it would be sending the wrong message for Rob Edwards to drop him. I don't think he can come out and be saying that he's backing the player and telling supporters to get behind him, but then dropping him for the next game. I think you'd be putting him in the team, starting him against West Brom at the Riverside Stadium on Friday night, and putting it on Whittaker as well to go out there and prove them wrong, show that he's got the mentality to play for Middlesbrough and to be a winner. Ultimately, at the end of the day, he's a good player. You can tell that technically he's very good, but it is also a mental game as well, and it'll be really important to see how Morgan Whittaker handles this moment and how he deals with this adversity moving forward. Because, like I said, I think it does feel like a bit of a crossroads for Morgan Whittaker. He needs to go out there and show that he's got the mentality, he's got the attitude to go out there and prove fans wrong. Those fans that were doubting him at Deepdale, he needs to go out there and show that he's capable of performing at this level, that he's capable of holding down a place in this Middlesbrough team. Like I said, I think he is very capable, but he needs to show it now. I think it's not good enough to have people like me saying that he's potentially a very good player for Middlesbrough. Once he finds a goal, he'll go on a bit of a run and that sort of thing. He needs to go out there and prove it now. And I think ultimately against West Brom, that'll be a massive opportunity for him to do that. I think Middlesbrough's attacking lineup against Preston didn't necessarily help because the front 3, all of them weren't great in the first half with Kali Sen, Whittaker and Tommy Conway, but perhaps he would be, I don't know, perhaps he would look a little bit better in a trio that included someone like Sverri Nipan, someone who could drop into slightly more central areas, someone who would get on the ball and allow Morgan Whittaker to play as a slightly more advanced player, almost a sort of second forward behind whether it's Tommy Conway or David Strelec or whoever it is. But I think that's a big decision that Rob Edwards has to make. I would start him against West Brom, but it's going to be a big decision and a big moment for Morgan Whittaker, because what happened against Preston was quite unsavoury. It was really disappointing that ended up being the talking point to come out of the other game. On what was an afternoon that was really good for Middlesbrough. It was a hard-earned point. It was one where, yes, we didn't win the game, and it's always disappointing not to pick up the 3 points. But I think a lot of fans were very happy to come away with a draw. That was a game last season that, in my opinion, we would have lost undoubtedly. Last season, we wouldn't have had the mental steel to go out there and to grind out a point, to come back from behind twice in the game. It was really, really impressive, and so that was a really positive thing. But the fact that this Morgan Whittaker situation ended up being the talking point was a bit of a shame. And so hopefully against West Brom we can put that behind us. Morgan Whittaker can prove some people wrong. I'd love nothing more than that, than for him to go out there and show what he's capable of doing against West Brom. And ultimately that will be the best solution all around. So I'm really interested to hear from you. I want to know what you think about Morgan Whittaker and his performance against Preston. Do you think fans were right to criticise him, or do you think Morgan Whittaker has what it takes to be a regular starter in this Middlesbrough team? Drop into the comments below. Let me know what you think about Morgan Whittaker. And if you have enjoyed this video, please do hit like, please do hit subscribe, and I will catch up with you next time.